And I want to welcome everybody to the March 2023 Planetarium Zoom seminar. And today we have Jeremy Amarant from Palmdale School District, Sage Planetarium. And he's going to be speaking about 23 years of K-12 under the dome. Okay, so Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you. So it's okay to take over now?
Yes.
Okay. So it's actually K-8, although that's changing. So I'll talk about that here in a second. Do I have to click share sound? Yeah, I do. Sorry, I'm looking around here. Okay, because I do have a video, but it's much later. Okay, there we go. So K-8 under the dome. And I say it's changing because we also have a charter school, but typically, I don't know if you know how school districts work, but I'll talk about that as well. But yes, K-8, really it's K to 10 right now, and we're adding 2 more grade levels, so it'll be K-11 then K-12 as we go up with our charter school. So for most of my work, it's been kindergarten through 8th grade. Let's see, I have to click here to get this to work. There we go. So there I am in front of the planetarium. So I've been here for a long time. I could have showed you some very old pictures, but I thought I'd take one from a little bit ago. And of course you can see me now. This is about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. You can see our planetarium in the background is tan color. That's how it's been most of the time I've been here, although we did get it painted, as you'll see here in a moment. So I'll show you a little bit of where we are. If you look at the bottom, I don't know, can you see my mouse? Mm-hmm. Okay, I see nods, yes. Okay, so Pasadena is here. So JPL is here. La Canada, I always say La Canada just to have fun. Canada, Flint Ridge, that's where JPL is. And then this little road here goes up to Mount Wilson Observatory. You look up at the top, and this is where Palmdale is up in this area. And then if you keep going, so this is Los Angeles, right? For those of you who are in New Jersey or someplace way across the United States or even out of the country. But if you go further north, you get to Edwards Air Force Base, which is, you know, from the movie The Right Stuff. It was all based on that area where a lot of old aerospace here. So you can find Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, you can find Lockheed Martin, of course, all over. You find Boeing, and then we have Mojave Spaceport. So a lot of aerospace, and this was a lot of the history of this area was based on that. So I ended up in kind of an interesting sort of place. A lot of technical people, but then also a completely different demographic than that as well. So anyway, this is just a little bit of where we're at. Here's the planetarium, and this is, I looked at all the pictures online, and most of them are pretty old, so I went out today and took a couple pictures. This is as of this morning. Just a little hint here for your planetarium, you can actually hire artists to go up and paint your logo on the side. This is the logo of the school. We're going to be painting the logo of the planetarium on another side. They kind of failed to put planetarium on there when they repainted it. And I kind of pointed that out until they finally gave me enough money to get it painted. So now we're getting the side painted, and I'll show you where. But we're at a school site. So we're at one of our K-8 schools. Altogether, there's about 24 schools in our school district and just around 20,000 students. So quite a few students, population. So this is where the logo is going to go right here. This is the view from the parking lot. Our entrance is here. The buses pull right up along here, or right along the curb, drop kids off. They go straight in. If we have wheelchairs or anything, they just go right in. There's just a single story here. You know, we don't have to go up or down. Here's the entrance. You can see the planetarium here in the background. Again, this is as of this morning. We're getting this whole area redone, actually. So I took some pictures a couple months ago of some different things, and I'll share what we're going to do there. But one fun thing is we had a picture of Mars, and so I updated it to a new picture of Mars. So this is about 8 feet across here. That's a pretty good size, right? And you can see they did a little patchwork. We're getting new carpeting. That's one of the things we're doing, and then replacing the seats and new projectors. So quite a bit of renovation here. They're going to make everything look fantastic. Here's a little older image. This is about, I want to say 2016. And you can see a little bit of our old Spitz 512 projector. I saw somebody with one, I think it was a 512. It might have been an A3P, but I think it was a 512. So we took the top of it off, mostly because people kept complaining that it was in the way and they couldn't see. So we did this in about, we went from the 512 to a hybrid system in 2008. And I know it was only a couple of years later that we pulled down the top there. And we left it like this for a very long time and got some quotes of how much it would cost to tear this out. And we were like, oh no, we better not do that. It's too expensive. And then superintendent cornered me one summer and said, hey, can you get rid of that thing in the middle? And I said, sure. So I started taking it apart piece by piece and got it out of there. So that's where we're at now. If I go to the next image, you'll actually see it missing. So this is a front of the dome view back. You can see where I control everything back here. We pulled out also the area back there and put in just a desk with some monitors. And the three in the middle are the ones I use to control Digistar. On the side, we have a workstation, so we can do that. I might move that to a back room once we build our permanent area that we're going to build back here. And this is our lighting control system, which you can see up here. I was actually working on this recently. And so that's why I took these photos, because we're, as I said, renovating. And so this is for the Bowen lighting system that's up here to control that. And then all of our audio and visual controls, which will probably move into a smaller rack when we get the permanent area built back here. So anyway, a little bit of view around the dome. You can see another view, the control station, kind of these are the doors that we were looking in. You can see the middle here, there's a big gap. When I pulled out the rest of the 512 system, and we're going to move these projectors closer together in the center. And this is where everything comes from the back. We French this out and put an area here so we could move these projectors closer together, which when we get the new projectors, we'll do that. So right now I just threw a carpet remnant over the top here and put some chairs over the top so nobody walks through there and trips. So here is a front view. You can see I'm up on a ladder, so that's how you're getting all these views. We have lots and lots of space up in those domes. I don't know if you've ever really noticed that. You certainly have if you climb up there. But yeah, lots and lots of space. These are projection design projectors. And then you can see the front of the room up here. Have the Unitron, which is sitting behind me. We have a board space, which I think we're going to eliminate. This is what I'm looking at. So I have this huge screen in front of me. Very nice. I like to use that for my office. Just pull this table out in front. That's what I did. And then set everything up on the table here and then do my conferences with the planetarium in the background. Have some display items. We're going to put in some more permanent, what do you call it, cabinetry, I guess. That's going to be up here in the front, so we won't have the tables there. And I think we're going to eliminate this board because this is a giant touch screen. So I have that with the cord coming down from the cove, which is nice because this is all on wheels. It's meant to be portable in the classroom, and so I can really place it anywhere. And that will eliminate the need for this dome. But I will take this opportunity to point out I have some things in this cabinet over here. And these are our regular information, piece of information for the kids. So we're missing something right now. It's our advertising for the Antelope Valley Astronomy Club. But you can see we have some items up here about the moon. So this is a moon calendar, another moon calendar. And then we have information on the moon. So any upcoming events, we usually put a little poster up here. I think that's enough about that. Oh, I should point these out for planetarium people. These are rear screen projection glass. I guess, I don't know if I said that right, but they're for old slide projectors that you used to project on the glass. We stopped using them very, very quickly within about a year of me being here. And that was because students couldn't see over the seats to see these, they're too low. We do have a very high spring line. It's about 8 feet, which normally you want to get it as low as possible, but by lifting it up, it does give us more space. If you look, our seats go all the way, not out, but underneath a little bit of the cove, which is not ideal, but it does allow us to get, believe it or not, we have a room for 130 people in here. So in a 40-foot dome, that's quite a lot of people. And we're not even using the center. All of these areas here is where we do our overflow seating. So we'll put chairs in these areas, but they're also the best seats. So we put our wheelchairs there. So if we get wheelchairs in, that's where they go. Best seats in the house, right? And so we purposely left this wide so that we could get those wheelchairs in there. And yeah, okay, so we'll move on now. So perspective, working for a school district, I have 6 kids. So we're a blended family. We have the 2 oldest there, 17, 15. Owen here turned 13, March 15th, the Ides of March. Her birthday is upcoming and their birthdays are upcoming. So Morgan is 10 right now. She'll be 11 at the end of May. Connor's 5, so he's in kindergarten, and Celeste is 3. So I have a lot of perspective when it comes to working for kids, working with kids. Yeah, I work with and for. So this picture is about a week old now. They're currently going on spring break next week, but we went to Magic Mountain, which is very close to us down in Valencia. So they went there and had a great time. This was an event that I was actually at last night. This is my daughter Celeste, she's 3. So she went with me to the event. We were working with kids, so and families. So I had 2 things set up last night. There wasn't a lot to look at. I mean, obviously it's daytime, right? So I took our solar eclipse glasses out, and you'd be amazed at how just solar eclipse glasses really gets people to go, wow, you know, just a simple thing like that, being able to look at the sun. So I did that, and then I had, let me stop sharing for just a moment.
Jeremy,
Go ahead.
sorry to interrupt you, but I don't know if it's just me, but the images are delayed coming up by about
Are they?
10
Okay.
or 15 seconds. Are you getting, anybody else getting that too? A little delay for them to show.
Okay.
Maybe
Well,
it's just
just
my setup. Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
It's okay on my end.
Oh, okay. It's probably my end. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, no, that's good to know, because I can always delay things just a little bit.
As long as you linger on the images for a little while, it
Right.
catches up. So
Right.
yeah.
So
Thanks.
I also took out 2 of these. These are sun spotters, and you view obviously right here. So this is nice for a crowd. You get a crowd of people, like I was doing this event last night out at one of our schools. They were doing a space night. So I set 2 of these up on a table, and I showed everybody how to use one, and then the other one I had set aside for them to play with. So, you know, I can instruct, show them. And the fun thing was, as it was getting later and later, the sun was going down, and we had, in the one I was using, trees were showing up across the sun, and then the other one, the kids didn't have the trees. So I was like, you could use either one if you want. And some kids like the trees, some didn't. So altogether, I have 4 of those in the planetarium. I'm going to give one away to somebody that I know does a ton of outreach. So there's no need for me to have them when I'm only using, you know, 2 at a time. But I'm going to give, like I said, one away to him, because I know he goes out and he works with kids too. So let's see, was there anything else I wanted to show you real quick? Oh, and I had our C-8, which you can see So I'm going to point right here. So this has been a workhorse for the planetarium since I've been here. It's very easy for me to put in my car and just go anywhere. So I started off with the solar filter on the front, and my daughter Celeste, who was with me, goes, "Can we look at the moon?" And fortunately, she said it like right as we're getting started. And I said, "Oh yeah, why am I showing all sun? Let's get the moon." So just switched over to the moon with the C8, and that's what I used for that. And so we shared with about 100 families views of the sun and the moon, and everybody was super happy about that. The only thing that was a little rough was I had everything set up for kindergarten because they were a K-5, kindergarten through 5th grade school. So I had to keep everything low. Celeste is as tall as a kindergartner. She's like, yeah, really, really tall. So she walked over and she kept looking in there. She looked probably 100 times, but she would go over there and she'd look and she'd go, "It's still in there." Or she'd look and she'd go, "Oh, you need to adjust it," because one thing about working with kids, they all want to grab the telescope. So we have eyepieces just for them to get their hands on and kind of wiggle it around. And I say, "Okay, can you point at the moon?" And they point at the moon, and I go, "Okay, so if I grab your arm and I move it, are you pointed at the moon anymore?" And they go, "No." And I go, "So if you grab the telescope and you move it, it's not pointed at the moon anymore either. So you have to keep that in mind, right?" And so they learn not to grab and move the telescope. Okay, back to the screen. Where was I? Oh, here, this last. There we go. So we were out doing that event last night. Okay. Says you can see it now. Okay. So there's Celeste, and of course she dressed up. The only thing she was disappointed about was she thought we were going in the morning, so she was all ready to go, and then she was upset that we had to wait till night, Oh yeah, and I have to click back over here. There we go. One important thing about working with kids is you want to do hands-on, and the more they can get a hold of it, the better it is. And so if you're doing an eclipse or event, something like that, so you can do projections, right? So this is through trees on the wall of the building, but you have fingers. So I like being able to share with kids things that they have access to. So I just made a little square there with my fingers and projected the sun onto the ground. And you can see the same sort of thing that you would through trees, through a colander, through pretty much anything. But I really like doing this even with kids when there's not an eclipse, because if you think about it, you're just creating a pinhole photograph or pinhole image of the moon. Or sorry, the sun. You do it with the moon, I guess, but it's not quite as bright. So anyway, I say, okay, let's all make a square with our fingers. And then I want you to look at the shadow on the ground. And in the middle, you always get an image of a circle. And so even with kindergarten, this is like pretty amazing. They're learning what a square is. They know what a circle is, right? And they go, "Why do we have two different shapes here?" And I go, "Well, think about what we're projecting, where this image is coming from. It's coming from the sun." And so I'll do this even with adults. We'll go out and look under the trees, and you'll see every image on the ground is a little circle, and these are all images of the sun on the ground. So it's important to remember that phenomena are happening all the time. It's not just a once in a while sort of deal. So prisms are a great way to demonstrate this. Just take a piece of paper, a prism, and I could do it, of course, on the concrete, but I was really trying to get an image with all the colors. This one I like to show that there's very little blue here. It's overhead, so there is some blue, but earlier in the morning, you'll get a lot less blue. That's because it's scattered out before it ever gets to the prism, right? So just something to think about. You can get a prism out, show them all the colors, and then you have an introductory to spectroscopy, which I also do with our kids doing hands-on science, which I'll talk about a little bit later, probably throughout. But an important thing working for a school district is that we have community events, ways that our parents and our students can come together at the planetarium and get to experience astronomy. So this is just a picture taken through that C8 with my phone. I'm a little disappointed. The new phones have 3 cameras, so they don't work as well. They do some tricks using all 3 cameras to take the image, so it actually ends up being out of focus all the time now, whereas when I had 2 cameras, they weren't using that as much. So I was able to get pictures right through the C8 eyepiece. And so I always invite our parents to do that, our students to do that. They love getting their own pictures. Of course, I have fancier cameras that I can set up on the telescopes. And so if I'm going to do that, I usually make sure that there's a couple of telescopes so that they're not monopolized. I want people to be able to look with their eyes. So here's a partial solar eclipse. We have 2 of these coming up. And so as part of the renovations, they were able to get some extra funds for me to do all sorts of things in the planetarium. And due to some compromises and a lot of extra work, I was able to have enough money to get solar eclipse classes so that we could send one home with every single student, because the one in October is on a weekend and our students won't be in class. So we're going to send them home. Then, because I'm buying them already, I might as well get them in bulk and get a second pair for the next eclipse, which I believe is in April, right? So April is mouthing yes, I think. So and some other people I could see too. Okay, so again, this is through the C8, but I can tell you this is not somebody else's image. This is my image, because if you look, when I got a reflection here, you can see my face, right? So some fun things, happy accidents, right, can happen this way. So you can get either the darker image where you get the sunspots and the eclipse happening, or you can get, you know, some other things in the foreground or background, kind of fun. I always have events that are going on, but there's, of course, a lot of things that are going on that you may not even notice. So if we look at this image, can somebody just chime in and tell us what's important about this image and why kids would be interested? And this is the finder scope of the C8. So you see anything going on here?
The moon's in the sky, daytime sky.
The moon in the daytime sky, very important concept. However, that was not the focus of this image. The focus of this image is actually lower. And you may not be able to see it. I can see it, of course, because I have a very big screen. So let me zoom in a little. Does that make it a little easier to spot? I'll go with my mouse. Do you see it down here?
Is it Venus or Mercury, or a planet or star? Yeah.
It is, it's Venus. So there you go. Venus during the day. So this happened to be a time when the moon was very close to Venus, passing by. And so I took the opportunity to point out that you can see Venus during the daytime. And you don't have to have a telescope for this, although that was much easier for the kids to use to see. But I do this often when there's a crescent Venus in the sky. I'll go out with my groups before they come in, and I'll point out along the building. I'll say, okay, if you stand right here, you'll see it in this spot. And you can see Venus during the daytime. When it's close to the moon and you have all of that, then that's great, because you can have them look through the finder scope, see it, and then they make the connection that this is a zoomed in version of what we're looking at through the finder scope. So crescent Venus, a great opportunity. I know I'm talking a lot about telescopes here, planetarium people, but I can't just do, I'm a telescope person, I guess that's where I was trained before I found planetariums. So I didn't mention during the picture of myself, I was supposed to mention that I worked at Griffith Observatory under Dr. Krupp. So I got the classic training. And then from there, that was in 1996 when Hale Bopp was going through. So it was a really fantastic time. But then afterwards, I left and went to Arizona, and I worked in Phoenix at the Arizona Science Center under, you guess who, Ryan Wyatt and Christine Shupla was the assistant director there. So worked at the Dorrance Planetarium. I was going to go grab my old name tags and put them on. So I had Palmdale and then Arizona Science Center, and then Griffith underneath, but it just ended up with Palmdale. Yeah, I worked in telescopes, worked with telescopes originally, and then found the planetarium. My degree is in astrophotography, which is a combination of art, and then at the time it was physical science and physics. And so they said they would only let me do the term astro in astrophotography if I did hard physics. And I said, oh, okay, no problem. So by taking art, earth science would be the equivalent of physical science today, earth science, and then physics, I was able to make my own degree, something you can do at the Cal State system. So CSU Humboldt is my alma mater. And yeah, so I'm talking a lot about telescopes because I am emphasizing, that I don't just stay in the planetarium. I actually go out and do events. We'll do events at the planetarium. If we get rained out or clouded out, we can always just go in the planetarium and we can entertain our folks that way. So we're doing all kinds of events, whatever's happening. This is what I'm telling the kids about on a regular basis, all these things that you can see, all these things that you can do. And then, so if there's a planetary alignment, right, then I'm telling them about it a couple months before, and every one of my groups that comes through, they're hearing the same sort of thing. Go out and experience it for yourself. Okay, so what is this? This is a comet that we made out of dry ice. So we do all kinds of fun things, and the more the kids can experience it for themselves or have it done for them, then fantastic. So we build comets. If there's a comet coming through, we'll get a bunch of dry ice, we'll throw all the ingredients in there, and we'll make our own comet. And this one you can see is melted a little bit. Once you get it melted, you can start to see some of the components. So you'll see like some cratering here, right, from when it was made. There's a little bit of sand. We have our charcoal, because comets are pretty dark, right? Darker than newly paved asphalt. So we'll create something like this and put all the components in there. We can have a perfect opportunity to tell everybody about comets, and then they can come in the planetarium and we'll see a show that deals with comets, and then we'll go back out and it's dark and we'll look at the comet. So we try to do these kinds of things and make these kinds of connections for the kids. But if you happen to have dry ice, then it's pretty nice to be able to build a comet, right? So in case of you're wondering, how do I get a hold of dry ice? We used to have to go to ice houses. So I started off going to different places that would supply ice, and then they would have dry ice. Of course, in the summertime, I could go to any of the ice cream vendors, and the ice cream places would have dry ice because the people who wheel around in the carts, they have dry ice in there for their ice cream. And so we were able to get it from the people that supply them. But then the kids started telling me about, oh yeah, I can get dry ice. I just go pay the ice cream guy and he'll give me dry ice. And I was like very scared about that, because here I'm showing them dry ice and I have to think about kids getting a hold of it and the dangers of that. And so I started teaching them about safety when I do dry ice demos and things of that nature. So don't just throw out the dry ice. Don't give any advice about it or something like that. So anyway, comet. I inspired some teachers. They got together and built their own planetarium in their classroom. And so this one's actually not full size. It's actually bigger than this. There's another layer on the ground, on the ground, but they couldn't get it in the classroom that way. So you look here, you can see it's cardboard and paper clips. And so they got it to this point, and paper clips, right? They got it to this point and asked me for help. They said, what can we project in here? And so I took a few things over. I had some things, but they ultimately ended up getting one of the mirror projection systems and putting it in there, and they had enough cardboard and clips for 3 planetariums altogether. And it was quite spacious. If you look inside, you can see here some chairs. So they pulled some chairs in there, and it has kind of the right shape, right? And they had to turn off the lights. You can see some openings there. They went around and and filled all of those in eventually, but yeah, it worked pretty well. And here you can see me and a couple of the students there, but they built into the classroom. And fun thing over here, you can see they used meter sticks for the entrance, kind of keep things together. But it was a fun activity. And so having a planetarium in our school district inspired them to do more. And so, yeah, it was really a lot of fun. We have a local astronomy club. And as part of this local astronomy club, I befriended them probably the moment I came here in December of 1999. And I said, okay, so 2 rules if you want to be in the planetarium every month for your meeting. The first rule is that we have a guest speaker or somebody from the club can talk, and we need that person so that we can invite the public to come in. And then it's not just your event, it's all of our events. So this way we're not showing favoritism to a group. It's open to the public and free of charge. So if you want to donate, then you can donate, and people can come in and hear a presentation. And this was very good for our teachers. This is very good for our students. It's very good for our families. And so we invited people to come in and hear guest speakers. So who's our guest speaker? It's this guy over here. You recognize him? Anybody?
John Dobson.
There you go. John Dobson. So the inventor of the Dobsonian mount. And so he came in and gave a talk. We've had many great speakers over the year, being where we are over the years. We've had many great speakers. Her name eludes me now. I knew it earlier today. I'm just blanking on it, but I love getting women in science to come in and talk to our students. And so she was doing research astronomy down at JPL and Caltech. And so she came in and talked about all of her work and how she got interested. I'll talk about this. I should talk about this painting. This is painted by a club member. And actually it's his wife. She doesn't come to much, but her husband's at everything, absolutely everything. So he brings out his telescope, and he's been a great friend. I've known him since I came here, and he's literally at everything. If I have one person that I can count on being there, it's him. And so his wife painted this gorgeous painting of Mars, and she stole his phosphorescent paint. And so anytime I turn on the black lights in the planetarium, then boom, it all shows up. So it's there. Does anybody know who this is? Let's see, I could look at my notes, but I know she talked at
Cox.
Yeah, somebody does. Yeah, she talked at I believe at least a couple of the regionals, but also at IPS, and I believe it was in 2004. She's come out probably a dozen times to talk about the Mars rovers. She worked on the Mars rovers, and so you could go to the Malibu library or you could come to Palmdale. So I just thought it was fun to see that, because we've had her probably more times in the Malibu library. But yeah, she loves coming out and talking to our group. Let's see. I'm going to switch over. So I'm going to share a different screen now. And I have a little video. This was kind of a happy accident, I guess. Dr. Eric Becklin from Sophia. Sophia is about a mile up the road, or it was, I should say, for its time here. And it was stationed out of Palmdale. It was because the hangar is there. That's big enough to house Sophia. So I was going to take a picture and I accidentally got a little video and went live on. So I'll share that and hear him talking here. So that's Sophia there.
I wouldn't do that. Sometimes it doesn't take off. Okay. Can everybody see the slides?
So there he is. Then we switched over to slides.
Oops.
I said oops when I realized what I was broadcasting it.
It's, I think, 401st or 2nd or 3rd. Kevin, do you know? No, I don't know.
So anyway, we have a great resource right here, Sophia. So we had him come over and speak a few times. We had plenty of people. Ashwin Vasavada, who was in charge of one of the, he was the chief scientist on one of the Mars rovers. We had him as a grad student come up and give a talk, and then he came back as the chief scientist. Really, really fun. So we had them then, you know, but we also get them now. Let me go back and I'll share at least. Is this the right one? Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to pause there. That's why that slide is there. Do we know what this is? It's from Scaled Composites. Nobody's jumping in there. Okay, so this is Spaceship One. So the X Prize, if you remember way back when, was private people going into space. Well, they assigned two places, awarded two spaces as being places where you could launch privately into space. One of them is in Mojave, the other is in New Mexico. So they launched the launch from there. So this is Brian Binney. We had him speak at our planetarium. He was the one who did the second, they had to go twice within 6 months, I believe. So they went up, this was his, he was the pilot for the second launch into space for Spaceship One. And so we had him speak at our planetarium, but that brings me to another, because I put this in with the astronomy club, right? That brings me to another thing that we did. Very early on, we started a writing contest in our school district, and we allowed students, we gave them basically a prompt, and then they would write and then submit it, and we had an essay contest. So the first year we had a few winners. It was just a couple of grade levels, and then we expanded it. And at the time, her name was Deborah Pedroza. She's there at the in front. She's the one that started this. She was a club member, and she went around and got all of the local assemblymen, very local, like Palmdale, Lancaster, but then also our regional assemblymen, and then state senators and things like that. And she got them to just give a little award saying that we recognize you winning the essay contest. And so students were able to win this essay contest. And she was very smart about how she did things. She gave all the club members the initial read-throughs. So they read through all the essays. They selected the ones that they thought were best, kicked it up to, I pulled teachers to read the next round, and we picked the best from that group. And then she handed off the best to the person who she invited to be a guest speaker. And so Brian Binney ended up being one of the guest speakers to address the kids. And so he was able to select the best essay contest, or best essays for the contest. And those were the winners. And so by 6 years in, we had this many winners and lots of great guest speakers. And Lockheed Martin donated money. This is Senator Pete Knight, who was a test pilot here at Edwards Air Force Base. Oh, and I didn't mention that also NASA Armstrong is out there. It used to be NASA Dryden. They share the same runway. And we have the Air Force Research Laboratories. All of that is here locally as well. Lots and lots. But anyway, Pete Knight was a test pilot, and then his widow is here. We renamed it after Pete Knight because he was a big supporter of the essay contest. He would come out actually himself, not just send a representative, and talk to the kids and tell them how important he thought it was. So you can see it grew quite a bit. We got the local telescope shops to donate, and kids got telescopes and all sorts of really wonderful prizes. So they got lots and lots of great things for winning the essay contest. So it was great publicity for the planetarium. It was great for our school district. It was great for the kids, and great for all the everyone involved. So really fantastic time. And these are ways that we built our planetarium and made it important. Because we share the site with the school, we're able to get a local artist involved. He happened to work for Hanna-Barbera and Griffith Observatory, and throughout the years, he worked for many, many places and became a space artist. And so he's Tom Hames, you can see here in the middle. And this was one of our first times that we offered painting, and he just kind of guided people through how to paint. This is one of the later times, so you can see we have more people here. He has since passed away. He passed away about a year into COVID, not of COVID, but during that time. And you can see him here. He's instructing everybody, and they're going through. We'd start off with a painting. He'd have like a sample, and then he'd walk them through, and we do it in a couple of hours. So, you know, you do those paint nights. If a lot of the shots have wine and paint where you'll do that. So here we open it up, and we've got a lot of kids involved. You can see doing a great job here. You can see all those stars and everything. And then they're putting in the foreground. You can see his dad is over here putting in the foreground there. So they walked them through. There's a more detailed one, the reflection in the water. You can see they did a great job. Because you want to do this fairly quickly. Oh, there they are painting in the stars. So that's how you start, you know, painting in the stars and stars, right? Lots of stars. And I believe this is a video. Let's see if we can get this to work. But you can hear his instruction here. This is his sample. So he's showing you the sample. And then this is, she's to the point where she needs to add these trees in. And so he's giving her some instruction on that.
You're black and you're gonna make all the branches and the bushes. Because you're gonna be able to see stars through it. Like you do when you're up in the mountains. You look up, look to the trees. And
this one's dark, so it doesn't.
make sure it's black.
So that's how they kind of started on the right there, and then, you know, built over to where she was, and then ended up with the final kind of like his painting. And I think, oh, that was a different night. You can see a couple of his paintings there on the bottom, and yeah, some of the other things that we did. We did probably about 5 of these, I want to say. And so we get all the canvases ready and everything, and then he would have everybody go through it, and we end up with great paintings, you know, that we could display. And I wanted to show you that if you look around the planetarium, you can see that Mars image, if I can point, all right, here. But then this is an instructional painting that he did for us of star sizes. And so he put in star sizes there for us and hung it on the wall. So anytime we get visitors to the planetarium that are studying stars, 5th grade standard, right? This is something that I can point out and use for instruction. Here you can see a black hole that he painted. Literally, they're all around the room. And so if you go back to those earlier images, if you watch back the video, you'll see that around the room. Those are all of his paintings. We also have a photograph that was done by a local sheriff's captain. He photographed and was an astronomy club member, but also a big advocate for our planetarium. And so we have a photograph of a partial eclipse that happened that we could see locally. So all of this community involvement is great for our students. It opens it up for their parents to do things, for the students to do things with their parents. And you know, we don't get, you know, 1 million kids coming. We get, you know, a handful, but those are the ones that are really interested and can make use of it. Let me go back to my screen, and I think I'm almost done with this part. So let's see. I gotta click on it. Okay, it says I'm sharing. So the brain is the most important organ you have, according to the brain, right? So I'm bringing this up for a reason, because, you know, these are the things I love to do, you know, but these are all more extra. So what am I doing with our kids? I guess that's the next part. And I'm going to jump over. So for COVID, I was doing Zoom like this, using Stellarium, you know, software. Hold on one second. Sorry for this. My screen's trying to shut itself down. I want to make sure that don't shut down all of a sudden here. I think I would just turn off the screen before it actually shuts the computer down. But during COVID, I was doing half-hour presentations for individual classrooms. So I'd zoom into a class, the kids could ask questions. I had families. They would, get the other kids in the house, little ones, bigger ones, to come over to their classes, and we would do virtual field trips. And so I would tell them about what they can see in the night sky, what kinds of things they could do at home. And so we did that. And then that summer, we were getting money in our school district so that we could do summer school. And so we were able to get a hold of books. So we got these from a company called Teacher Created Materials. But I went through and I found things that were grade level appropriate and standards based. So these are all standards based. And I'm going to go through this just real quickly to show you how I select shows for the planetarium. And I know this could be a whole other talk, I'm sure. But let me go, I think it's this screen I can share. Okay, so we look at the standards, and this is a typical next generation science standard up here at the top. And so this one is kindergarten. You always look here, you can see the K for kindergarten. Earth, space, science. And then this is standard 2.1 Earth systems. And it tells you what you need to do, and then clarification statement of what they mean, how it connects to engineering and practices and core ideas, and then the cross-cutting concepts. And then I added for the teachers down here a second part, which is how do we know that this has been taught? And so you'll know that this has been taught if you can do this. So with guidance, students organize data from given observations, firsthand or from media, about local weather conditions using graphical displays, pictures, charts. The weather conditions include the number of sunny, cloudy, rainy, warm, cool days, right? All of these things down here to let us know that they've done it. They got it. They've mastered the standard. And so these are the standards that we were covering with the books. So I can go over to here, and this is sort of the whole thing that I was able to get to the teachers. But I showed them this standard. This is a standard we're working on, and I did it by weeks. It was 4 weeks. And so we went through all the weeks, and they got these books, and then we could talk about what is the weather, right? And so this is an actual sample of the book. They give teachers like the learning objectives. So this is what you're going to be able to do during the books, but they also gave them some activities that they could do. So when it was appropriate, I would do the activity, and we were able to send those out to the teachers and do that. And then here's the book. And so those of you who don't know what kindergarten text looks like, I can show you. It says the weather is sunny, right? That's simple, just 4 little words there, right? So then you go, I am warm, a result of that, right? And then the weather is windy, and then I am chilly, and the weather is rainy, so you can guess I'm wet. The weather is snowy, I am cold. And so the book goes on and on like that. And they talk about humid. We add some more advanced terms there because we don't want to just be, doing one little thing, right? We want to go through and cover it more completely. And I think I need to move this over so I can get the last one. And so where do you get this information? There's a framework here, right? An entire framework for the NGSS, Next Generation Science Standard. And it goes into great detail. So I thought I'd share where this goes. Where does this go? So we look at the weather one, right? I have the right one. Pretty sure I do here. Yeah, okay, so where are we going with this? And you look in here, this is actually a searchable document, and they get you here, they say by the end of grade 2, wind and water can change the shape of land, the resulting landforms getting us together with the materials on land to provide homes for living things. So they're showing you at the end of grade 2, you're going to do this. So when you're looking at how can I incorporate weather, you go to kindergarten, you see the weather, oh, they have to know the different kinds of weather. And so I have a song that talks about how it's sunny, and we talk about what is the theme of this. And you can say, oh, the theme is the sun, right? And we'll talk about the sun. And so then this, and we can say, what are other kinds of weather? And I can show them that in the planetarium. And so then it builds up to grade 2. So this is ultimately where they're trying to get. And so as a kindergarten teacher, you're doing all the pieces so they can get to this point. And then by 5th grade, they're getting to this point where it's a lot more involved. And then 8th grade, they're getting to this point. And it's all the same standard, right? We're just building through the years. And then by the end of grade 12, ultimately, this is where we want the students to be. And so you can see there's a path here. We're not just doing one thing. This gives you a lot of depth when you're looking at shows and how they fit in with different grade levels. This is the path that they're using. And so this is a searchable document. You can just go through. It's a PDF. If you don't have access to it or can't get access to it, it's right here on the Next Generation Science Standard. Download it right there at this link. So I'll copy that and I'll put it in go back over. I think I have to stop sharing to do that. Well, because I'm done with that. But I can go into the chat here and I'll share that link for everybody. And that's where you go to get the standards or the framework. And this is national. It's not just local, but this is a national standards for Next Generation Science Standards. And you go in there and download the framework. You can search by any topic. There's a whole, I picked one that wasn't specifically astronomy based. Weather is certainly part of our job, but not, the main thing, right? We deal more with space and that sort of thing, but certainly weather, we can put that in there. So that might be a way when you're looking at, does a show fit? Where does it go? How do I do it? You can look at what they need to know. And how do they master it? That sort of thing. So as a teacher, they'll appreciate you being able to build out of this and talk about your shows and how they're great through the grade levels. And so when I'm looking at shows, I buy them specifically for a grade level. I don't buy a general show and say, okay, we have this new show and we're going to show it to everybody. We're going to show it for very specific grade levels with very specific topics in mind. Now, that being said, I let the teachers choose, but I try to guide them as much as I can and recommend what I can. I could talk about many things from here, so I'm going to open it to questions because I know we're low on time. But just a little aside, it's kind of difficult for us to purchase shows the traditional way, which is based on our attendance and based on the size of our dome and the number of pixels, right? That's the kind of the standard for purchasing shows. Because I get the pixels part, but our attendance is not by grade level. I guess I could report that, but I'd always be at the bottom end, right? Anyway, so we see about between 10 and 15,000 students through here every year. Our biggest year, we had 22,000. So that was like our peak year where I was getting people through. But typically I do shows during the middle of the day or from the morning till the midday. And then in the afternoon, I go out and I do hands-on science at the schools. Just a way that I figured I could get myself in front of students more. And it definitely lets us be seen more and promotes the planetarium more. I work specifically with principals. So when I go out to book shows, I'll go out and I'll sit with the principal and I'll say, oh, do you want to bring just specific grade levels or your whole school? And I've worked with our bus since we're in a school district. I worked with our buses. They are very, very busy in the morning and very, very busy in the afternoon. And so there's kind of a peak time when the buses are not being used. And that's for us, they can pick up at any school at 9:30 and they need to be back, delivered all the students back by 1 in the afternoon. So as long as I schedule it during that time, they give us a discount rate. And it's only to the planetarium and back, not like going to a park to do lunch or something like that. It's just straight to the planetarium and straight back. And they give us an hourly rate of like really discounted, just like the bus driver in the bus. So we're able to get a lot of students through that way. And I can book, with the principal, $1,200, they get a field trip for their whole school to the planetarium. So that really, I'm just approximating, but it really makes a difference when a principal can know how much it's going to cost. And they get that specifically from the bus company, not from me, but knowing approximately how much it costs for their whole school to visit the planetarium. And that's well within their budgets. And so I try to get them at the beginning of the year. I meet with them over the summer, hey, let's have lunch or let's sit down, and I just book out their whole school and go on to the next one, meet the next principal. And some like to do it with Zoom. And I get individual teachers that'll, if their principal doesn't say yes, or for whatever reason, they don't make it over, the teachers will book with me individually. And then we also support the outside groups. We just charge them basically $1 a head. So that limits the amount of homeschool groups that I get. They'll more likely come to our public nights, which I offer twice a month for anybody who wants to come with their families. And I advertise that to all of our school kids and out at the schools. So I do our public nights, which are always free, but also allows a lot of the homeschool groups and things like that to come in. Yeah, so I say $1 a head, that's to rent out the whole planetarium. So they have to pay for every seat in here when they come. So most schools, they'll pay more for the buses to come over than they will to be at the planetarium. Yeah, so I just said a whole bunch of stuff there at the end. So I expect questions now.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Alan.
Opening up.
Well,
Go ahead, April.
SAGE, is that an acronym?
It is. So it's funny because we were students acquiring, and it depended on what you read, experiences or experience.
Okay.
Students acquiring galactic experience or experiences, two totally different things, but yes. And then the funny thing is, so this was originally the SAGE school. They're named after things you would find in the desert. So things like tumbleweed, manzanita, mesquite, different things like that. And then they had SAGE, which closed down, and that was the original school here in the 1950s. And so when they opened it, they wanted to throw back but not be SAGE again. So they called it SAGE as an acronym. Okay. And then they opened the school over here, a magnet school, and they wanted to call it SAGE. So they chose a different acronym. So it's kind of like, oh, we're very disjointed here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question about how you utilize, in addition to what you mentioned with your astronomy club that meets there monthly. Do they also help you with the community nights and the public nights, or maybe you said that and I missed it? Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of things. We have a monthly in Lancaster, a monthly walk. We call them a moon walk, where we go out under the stars, take my laser, I go out there, and it's sponsored by the city of Lancaster. They have a unique facility over there where they took basically a huge plot of land and just let it revert back to the desert. So they just said, here, we're going to preserve this area and just let it be. And so, there used to be airfields out here, all kinds of different things, and now housing everywhere. They just, right in the middle of the city, closed off all these acres and just said, okay, you can go out there and you can walk around, but make sure you stay on the path. And the rest of it's all nature. So that's how you get to go out there and experience it. And so we do a monthly out there. where we go out under the stars. It's always a Saturday night, and I point out things in the sky and talk about it. And so the Antelope Valley Astronomy Club goes out, brings their telescopes, and after we're done, they all get to look through. And so anytime I have an event, the astronomy club is already used to coming to the planetarium for their monthly meetings. So it's on the second Friday of every month. We just decided that would be it. And so at 7 p.m., they meet and they have a guest speaker or something the public can learn from, you know, either a painting night or, you know, we'll have a club member talk about telescopes or whatever. So, or we'll do a planetarium show even. So we do that as kind of like a default if they can't get a speaker. And that allows us to have this great pool of people that are experienced with telescopes, have a lot of knowledge, and we can have them go out for any of our space nights. I knew last night wasn't going to be terrible and I could handle it on my own. So I could have asked the astronomy club to come out and had like tons of members out there with telescopes. But it was a Thursday and I couldn't really count on, you know, a lot of people being there. So I just handled it myself. But yes, I do have this great pool of people that I can call on as volunteers that they'll come out for any event. And so we'll get lots of telescopes.
Jeremy, I'm wondering about your staffing, because I'm tired listening to you. I'm overwhelmed. Like, how do you get kids to look through one telescope while they're getting off the bus and coming into your planetarium to look at the sun? And what are they looking at if they're not looking through the eyepiece, and like how you manage all that?
Yeah, so when they come, they're here at the planetarium for about an hour, and that's getting off the bus, coming into the planetarium, and then leaving. So that's an hour's time. And so I like as much of that to be planetarium as possible. And so while I might want to do something like look at the sun, I don't really have time for that. So only during special requests, I'll do something like that where I'll set up a sun spotter where everybody can kind of gather around, you know, 6 at a time and get a view and then come in, something like that. The special events like eclipses and things like that, we don't do, it's not a planetarium visit. It's not that kind of thing. We'll go out to a school site and I'll just like, it'll be all about that. It'll be the astronomy club and it'll be me and probably news people too, because they like to do that. Positive press, I love it. We'll go out and we'll let that school kind of experience it. And I'll instruct everybody else. So I do that usually with videos and open that up to teachers so that they can get a hold of that. That's how I taught summer school. Like, here's what we're doing for hands-on science, you know, for these books and hands-on science during summer. But if they're leaving, I'll do something like this. Okay, so what are these? I told Alan ahead of time what these were. But I got these moon rocks from NASA, which came as a giant acrylic hockey puck. And if you're dealing with kids, they're like, so what? It's a hockey puck. You know, they don't really care that those are moon rocks in there, but they might care, you know, they might. So what I did was I talked to a local geologist at Cal State Northridge, and he worked on the moon rocks. And he said, you know, we have local examples of these. And I go, we do? Can I go get them? And he goes, yeah. And I go, where? Tell me. And so he told me where to go get them. And we went out and we got them. So this is basalt. This is anorthosite. These are the main rocks that you see on the moon. And so I went back and he said, okay, the only way I can tell that these are not moon rocks is to put them under a microscope. And then I'll see the crystalline structure is bigger on the moon rocks versus the earth rocks because there's more gravity on the earth. So smaller crystals. So I can take these and put these in kids' hands, right? And they can hold them, feel what these rocks look like. And, you know, I have to make sure these are not moon rocks, these are earth rocks, but they're the same rocks that are in here. And so we do that. We have NASA Armstrong right up the road. And so we can get teachers trained up so they can check out the moon rocks, that sort of thing, when they did the lunar landing program. And then because I knew that we had to store them, I said, oh, let's put a safe in the planetarium and we'll have a safe here. And that way you can store them here. And so if you check them out, come to the planetarium, you can lock them up here and they know that this is a safe place. And so the safe was delivered to the superintendent's office and he didn't know what it was. And they stopped the lending program right about that time because one of them ended up on eBay. So it's kind of funny. So anyway, he's going to move the safe over here when we do our renovation finally. So little ways that we can support them, and very quick to get a rock in some kid's hand as they're exiting or something like that. I also have meteorites, so we do that. You know, you can get them in the kids' hands. Something you should do is make sure you spray them with silicone, so they you know, silicone spray, so they don't rust. If you have the iron, this is a stony, so you don't really have to worry about that so much. But then I also have obsidian, just to show them the difference. You know, this might look like a moon rock, but or a meteorite, but it's not. And so this is what we call a meteor wrong. You know, so so you can show them the difference. But quick things like that is where I'll get them in and out and show them, and that makes the experience more real for them. Also, we try to do half pre-recorded show and then half night sky. This is what you can see, this is what you can experience. So half of it's live, half of it's pre-recorded. If they don't want that, I can do all live, that's fine. If they want all pre-recorded, I can do that too. So so we offer a lot, and it's really catering to our audience, which is the school district and teachers and students. So that's what we do here. I could go on forever about this. Like 23 years, you learn a lot, you really do. So just little tricks like booking with the principal is much easier than 10 emails with the teacher. I only have to instruct one person, you know, on how to do this, and then they're good for the next year too, if they're still principal.
Yeah, well, I've really enjoyed listening to you, and I do have one question. You may have mentioned it, but I missed it. What is the new projection system you're planning on putting in?
So we have some really great Christie projectors that are coming in. They're the laser projectors. They'll be about 10 times brighter than these, probably take up about as much space, even though it's all projector. This is mostly stand. They do tricolor, so laser in 3 colors, which, if you know, that's one of the ways you can get color is RGB. So they are RGB lasers, and they're quiet too. They're not like the other. That was a big concern. One of the local community colleges kind of copied our system, but then they put in these giant Christie laser, or they weren't laser projectors at the time, they were just projectors, and they were super loud. And they came over to our planetarium and they're like, oh God, I can actually do instruction in this, you know, because the fans aren't so loud. And I was like, yeah, you kind of need to talk to somebody, and like, you know, Phil Gross, that's one of the things he does, is make sure they don't make mistakes, like put giant loud projectors in the middle of their room, you know. So yeah, so they were, it really does help to have an expert. It really does help to have somebody who knows what, worked in a planetarium before, right? You know, not just a college instructor working with your planetarium equipment. So does that answer your question? Christie projectors, we have Digistar 7, and it's 220. So we fortunately have 220 in the room for UPS backups that we got, uninterrupted power supplies that for our servers. So we're able to just kind of move extension cords over through those channels and get them up to our new projectors.
I have a question about the pre-recorded videos. Are these some that you created? Are they commercially available? Are there ones you really like?
Yes. So I started off with the Spitz 512, and so I pretty much created everything that came in, but I buy pre-recorded things like the Explorers or things of that nature, if you remember that show from Hawaii. So I would have shows that were slide based and that sort of thing, but it was very difficult. So using a slide projector to kind of, I was showing Alan this the other day. I had a PowerPoint where I put up, here's an image of this constellation all drawn out, and then I'll show you in the sky in a moment. Remember what it looks like, because I'm going to show you. And you know, it was very much creating my own shows. And then now I can get commercially available shows, and there are many that are much, much better than others, as far as keeping the kids' interest, and also hitting the standards very well and communicating those. So I do have to do a lot of introduction to set it up to make sure that we hit the standards. Some shows I don't have to do them very much of that, but I always give them an introduction and talk about the science that's there and make sure the teachers know how this connects. And then at the live portion, I just talk about the night sky, and that's more of an experience. So like a big part of a field trip for a kindergartner is, what is a planetarium and what is that all about? And so I make those connections to, hey, this is like a movie theater. Who's been to the movie theater before? We're going to turn off the lights like a movie theater. I'm glad you know what that's like, because there's nothing scary here. And I don't know if you saw in one of the earlier slides, there's a light with a star. I sometimes have to go out for our pre-K, you know, or TK. They're transitional kindergarten. They're really young. They're 4-year-olds, and they get scared, you know. And so I'll turn on a little starlight and I'll say, here, you can hold this, you know. They'll hold it, or a little flashlight, and they'll hold it, and that just helps them, you know. It's just, and they don't need to hold it the whole time, because everybody wants to hold it, right? So they hold it for a little bit, and the teacher decides, okay, here, you know, and you know, they'll give it back usually pretty quickly, but that'll help. Or I'll give them a little, you know, little turtle they can hold, or a little Pikachu they can hold, or you know, something like that, just to be more comfortable in the planetarium. But usually by first grade, they're over that. Kindergartners also, with these kind of seats that flip down, I told them they can cross their legs. So they cross their legs, it helps hold it down, you know, little tricks that we learned. Other things would be like, okay, it's not going to get any colder in here. It might get warmer, but it's not going to get colder. Everybody, if you need your jacket off, take it off, put it on your lap like a blanket, or set it on the floor next to you. And, you know, now's the time to do that. We just take that time to get seated and get situated. And that just helps. And I remind them at the end, everybody pick up your stuff. Now's the time to do that. We're going to go listen to your teachers. They're going to take you out row by row. Another thing is, I don't usually do open seating unless it's a public night. I tell the kids where to sit. And that way, it was very important for COVID that they sit every other seat. So they had a seat between them. And then I have a sprayer that is antiviral that I would go through the planetarium afterwards, you know, put on my hazmat suit. No, not really, but felt like it, right? And I put on a mask and go through and spray down all the seats, you know. And cloth, if you don't know, cloth is great for kids, because if you have vinyl and they cut it, you're kind of out of luck. Cloth can be repaired, you know, it's a little bit of a stitch. So our superintendent came through and said, make sure that you get, with the new ones, cloth, it's not vinyl, you know, because I was looking at like, oh, nice leather, you know, that kind of thing. Another thing is, you'll look at the seats and you'll see that they're narrow. We're K-8, we're not talking adults here. You know, we don't need the extra wide seats. We do that with our overflow. So I have other seats like the one I'm sitting in, like this, which you can see, is a little wider than the seats. And so this is more comfortable for a teacher who likes to sit and look over their class, you know. And so I offer that as, set them up in our handicap areas, and you can sit there with your class, or you can move students. I'm just getting them in seats. You can move a student and seat yourself strategically, or you can sit in one of the seats at the end, you know, or if you see potential problems, you can move kids, that's fine. We have the empty seats, go ahead and use them, that sort of thing. So yeah, we learned strategies, and hopefully that answered your question. Kind of got a little off there. More?
I just had a quick question about the comet activity. Did you get that from JPL, or is that something you learned elsewhere?
I worked at Griffith Observatory, and that was one of the things that they did. They pre-recorded it and put it up on their dome when Hale-Bopp was going through. I mentioned Hail Bot, right? So they were talking Comet, Comet, Comet. And so when I became director here, I decided to recreate that, and I had to recreate it from scratch. So I remember now, the question was about staff. So I am a staff of 1 here, and what I did was make myself very, very valuable to the school district. And so they are constantly adding more to my plate. So they added summer school, right? And so they can't keep adding without adding staff. And so at some point you can't do it all. And so that's when you ask for staff. And they're adding a science bus, and it's just basically hands-on science. What I do in the afternoons, they're adding that bus to go out, and it's a portable classroom where we can do hands-on science. But as part of that, I have a telescope. I have a projection screen like this where it's touch screen, and we're going to control a telescope from there and do imaging. And then we'll have the telescopes on this side for people to look at as well. But we can't keep adding more and more and not have staff. So as of right now, I'm staff of 1. I've been here like this. And there are times where, you know, when it was an optomechanical projector, most of my time was doing optomechanical slide projector repairs and then setting things up. And then from there, that's where my afternoons went. Now, because we have digital, I don't have to do as much of that. I can put myself more in front of kids and go out and do hands-on science. And so I ran a grant, and during that, I kept saying, you're doing too much, you need to add staff. They sent somebody over thinking that I wasn't doing enough. And then that person went back and said, oh, you know what? You need to give them more staff. You need some more help. And so, yeah, they realized that. And so I got some help. It's hard because, you know, if I get a good person, they're going to end up in a classroom. So I'm looking at maybe like, you know, a way that I could maybe train people or planetarium people or something like that. So yeah, we'll see, see where we end up. But yeah, I get help, lots and lots of help, but as of actual staff, it's just me.
Well, it's getting close to the time when we should probably wrap it up. If you got any last questions here, that was really interesting, Jeremy. Thank you for doing this, and you know, a little round of applause for Jeremy that's coming and telling us about this amazing 28 years been doing it.
Yeah. So yeah, 96 is when I started at Griffith, and before that it was observatories.
Yeah, you said something about an astrophotography major. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's interdisciplinary studies where basically the college doesn't provide the major that you need, but they have the pieces for that major. And so I created it.
Oh, you're self-made major. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so interdisciplinary studies, but you know, you have to get signed off by all the people in the departments. It's 3 different departments that you're pulling from. And so, yeah, it turns out it was a perfect degree for planetariums. I just didn't know about them.
Yeah. And it's Dario's bedtime. So
oh yeah.
we're in Portugal. Yeah. And for some it's dinner time, and for some it's nice. These are nice groups. We're from all over the place.
Yeah.
Good to get together. And thanks again, Jeremy. I'm gonna stop the recording now if I can figure out how to do